Boker Tov. We are today doing Daf Kaf Gimel Amud Aleph. Right now we're holding on Kaf Bet Amud Bet towards the bottom. We're going to pick up from where it says Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. It's maybe like 8 or 9 lines up from the bottom. The first one on line is he. So we're in the middle of a discussion here. So today, actually, a very interesting topic in today's Gemara. We're going to talk about sisters that are not really halachically sisters, that are not really related to the individual, and mikorot of how we know that from the Torah. So we're in the middle of a discussion. We had a machloket Rabbanan and Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. We have 2 psukim that talk about the erva of sister in the Torah. One pasuk is ervat achotecha, bat avicha, or bat imecha, etc. The erva of a person's sister is asur. He's not allowed to be with his sister. Then we have an additional pasuk, ervat bat eshet avicha, the erva of the daughter of your father's wife, which is also sister, like the pasuk itself says, achotechahi. So why do we need 2 psukim? So Rabbanan said that one pasuk is to tell me a sister even through onsin, even through someone that his father took advantage of, wasn't married to. And the second pasuk is telling me there's an additional isur on top of that for someone or a sister through a marriage that his father had, meaning his father married a woman and had a girl. That would be his sister. There would be 2 isurim of, he would be violating ervat achotecha and ervat bat esh davicha. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda argued. He said no, there's only one isur. So asks the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Hai bat eshet avicha, mayavidle. What does he do with the pasuk of ervat bat eshet avicha? If there's only one isur, so why is there a second pasuk? What's that coming to teach me? So says the Gemara, mi ba'ile misheyesh lishud la'avicha ba. It's coming to tell me that the isur of sister is only a sister through someone that their father had ishut with. So that's obviously coming to exclude something. It's coming to exclude a sister that there's no ishut with the father. From that sister came from a relationship where there was no ishut with the father and the mother. So Prat suggests the Gemara, this is coming to exclude la'achoto mishivcha v'oved kochavim. It's coming to exclude a sister that he has through a shivcha or an oved kochavim, meaning he's a Yisrael kasher. His mother and father are both Jews, but his father also was with a shivcha, and this guy has a sister through that shivcha or oved kochavim or goya. We're saying that that's not included in the erva of sister. That's what we need. The pasuk of ervat bat eshet avicha is teaching me the erva of sisters only from someone who has ishut to the father, and this is coming to exclude achoto mishivcha v'oved kochavim she'en ishut la'avicha ba. The father has no ishut with a shivcha and oved kochavim, so a sister that comes through that relationship would not be considered a sister in terms of the erva of achoto. So now the Gemara is going to make a few different suggestions. Like, why are we choosing? There are a bunch of things that we could exclude, cases that there's no ishut. So why are we choosing to exclude the case of a sister through through a shivcha or oved kochavim? The Gemara says, ve'ema prad lachoto manusa. Maybe, why can't we say that we're coming to exclude a sister through anusa, meaning his father took advantage of a woman and had a girl. There's no ishut there. So maybe bat esh davicha is coming to teach me that in order to violate sister, it has to be a sister that comes through, not through onsin, because maybe she's not considered your sister with regard to an erva. So the Gemara says, lo matzit amra, that you can't say. Ayi lo matzit amra, that you can't say. How do we know you can't say that? Midirava. Because we have a teaching from Rava. Rava is going to show us a teaching that Rava is going to show us a teaching that the onsin is still miyuchas after the individual. Meaning, if someone is ma'anes, a lady, that product that came from that onsin is still miyuchas after him and is still related to him as far as arayot are concerned. So, the Rava Rami, Ktiv, it says in the pasuk, Rava has a contradiction. On the one hand, it says, ervat bat bincha, ubat bitecha lo tegale. It says that a person is not allowed to be with his own granddaughter. Habat bena dida ubat bita dida shari. But it sounds like he's allowed to be with a woman and with her granddaughter. But the problem is there's another pasuk. Uchtiv ervad eshet isha ubita lo tegale et bad bina ve'et bad bita. There's a pasuk that clearly says a person cannot be with a woman and her daughter or a woman and her granddaughter. So on the one hand, it says a person cannot be with his own granddaughter. Sounds like he could be with his wife's granddaughter, but on the other hand, the pasuk says he can't be with his wife's granddaughter. So, haketzad, how do you resolve this? So, kan be'onsin, kan be'nisuin. One pasuk is talking about onsin, one pasuk is talking about nisuin. Meaning, if he is married to a woman, so he can't be with her and he can't be with her granddaughter. But if he was ma'anes a woman, so there's no isur of him being with her granddaughter. If he was ma'anes a lady, as long as it's not his own granddaughter, it's a granddaughter that she had from somebody else, he's allowed to marry that granddaughter. But still, if he's ma'anes her and it's his own granddaughter, he cannot marry her. So you see that a product that comes from onsin is still related to him. Even though he was ma'anes the lady and he had a granddaughter from her, that granddaughter is still miyucheset after him. She's still related to him as far as arayot are concerned. So if he has a daughter from onsin, it's his daughter, so his son and his daughter are brother and sister. So even a sister through onsin must be included in the erva of sister. So that's not an option to exclude. So the Gemara says, okay, next, why don't we say that it's coming to exclude chayve lavin? Meaning, the pasuk says that a sister is only asura when there's ishut. So maybe it's coming to exclude chayve lavin. That if the father married, let's say, a mamzeret, or the father was a kohen and he married a grusha as a second wife, or something like that, and the guy had a sister from a product of that relationship, maybe that should not be an erva of sister. So the Gemara says that Amar Rav Papa chayve lavin tavsibu kiddushin. No, chayve lavin kiddushin is tofes. The isur, what's being excluded here is a case where there's no ishut to the father. If the father is together with chayve lavin, kiddushin is tofes by a chayve lavin. Therefore, that would for sure be considered achoto, because it would be bat eshet avicha. It's the daughter of someone who the father could have had kiddushin too. Now, what's the makor? How do we know that kiddushin is tofsin by chayve lavin? Dichtiv, the pasuk says, this pasuk is talking about giving over the nachala to the next generation. It says ki tiyena li shtei nashim ha'achat ahuva v'ha'achat sinua. So if a person has two wives, one of them is ahuva, loved, one of them is sinua, hated. So the pasuk has to tell me lo yuchal levaker et ben ha'ahuva apnei ben sinua bechor. If the bechor really is from the wife who's sinua, he's not allowed to switch it around and give the double portion to the to the child, his son from the ahuva, from his loved wife. So the Gemara says, "V'chiyesh ahuva lifnei hamakom, v'yesh sinua lifnei hamakom." Is there a havamina that because he likes one, he should be able to swap the bechor and give the bechor to the son that he likes, even though he's not the bechor? That doesn't make any sense. What's the havamina? So ella, rather, when it says ahuva and sinua, ella ahuva b'nisueh, sinua b'nisueh. Ahuva means that this one's relationship is loved, meaning the one who's not really the bechor comes from a relationship that's a good kasha relationship, and sinua means the the one who really is the child, the bechor, comes from a relationship that relationship is sinua, meaning the father took chayve lavin. And the Torah still calls it kitiena leish havaya. There's still ishut there. So we see, even though this relationship is sinua, it's a relationship that's a chayve lavin. The guy took a mamzeret, or he took it was a kohen who took a grusha, or some other chayve lavin. Still, kiddushin is tofsin, because it says kitiena leish shtei nashim. When they have havaya to the man, the relationship is the kiddushin is tofes. Good. Okay, ve'ema prat l'chayve kiritut. So why don't we say it's coming to exclude chayve kiritut? That if the sister came from a relationship of chayve kiritut, then that sister would be excluded from the erva of achoto. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava, Amar Kra. Rava says, no, like, he can't exclude that. Why? The Pasuk says, Ervat achotecha bat avicha o bat imecha moledet bait o moledet chutz. Pasuk says, the erva of your sister, bat avicha o bat imecha, daughter of your mother or father or mother, moledet bait o moledet chutz. What are those words teaching me? Ben sheomrim l'avicha kayem. Whether we tell the father, it's, you can, this is a wife that you could be mekayem. Ben sheomrim lo whether we tell the father, get her out of the house, meaning she's a chayve kritut and this relationship is not allowed. So the pasuk says achotechahi, meaning even though it's moledet chutz, she came from somebody, the sister was a moledet chutz, she came from somebody who was an outsider, meaning was not allowed to have a relationship with the father, we still say that she's achotecha. So even though she came from a chayve kritut, the father was together with his mother or with his sister and had this child, that is still considered your sister. It's moledet chutz achotechahi. So the Gemara says, well, let me flip around the drasha. Ema ben shomer lavich kaim ben shomer lavich hotze. Why can't we use that pasuk of moledet chutz to tell me even though this shivchar oved kochavim is an outsider, still it's considered your sister? It calls it achotechahi. Gemara says, well, the problem is we have another drasha saying the opposite way. Amar kara badesh davicha. We have ervat badesh davicha, has to be misheyesh lo yishud laavicha, someone, only a sister that comes through, that shayach, comes from a relationship that was shayach ishut to the father. Ba pad la'achoto mishivcha oved kochavim is coming to exclude sister from shivcha oved kochavim. So essentially what we have here is we have two conflicting drashot. On the one hand, we have a drasha ervat bat eshet avicha. It's telling me that the only time sister is asur, the sister is asura on a person, is when it's shayach ishut to from the father to the mother of that sister. So we're choosing to exclude from there a sister that came from a shivchan with a kochavim. But on the other hand, we have another drasha that says moledet bait or moledet chutz, that an outsider who has kiddushi, who the father is together with, and they have a sister, they have a child, that is included in the erva of achoto. So why we have two drashot? One is including a case where it's not shayach kiddushin for the father and mother of this sister. That sister is excluded. And another case is the sister is included, where it's not shayach kiddushin between the mother and father. So the Gemara says, Umar, right, what do you see to include on the one hand when we have a drasha that includes a sister and a drasha that excludes a sister? So how come we're choosing to include a sister through chayve kritut, that's considered your sister, but we're choosing to exclude a sister through a shivchan oved kochavim, and that's not considered your sister? Why? So the Gemara says, Mistavra chayve kritut havalei lerabot. It makes sense to include chayve kritut, that she is considered your sister, a sister that came through chayve kritut. Sheken tavsibu kiddushin la'alma, because the whole drasha is it's someone who is not shayach kiddushin to your father. But okay, this person, she's in the parsha of kiddushin, right? If someone came, a sister that came from chayve kritut, the mother, that means the mother, your father was together with either his mother or his sister or one of the chayve kritut. But that lady who your father was with is in the parsha of kiddushin. She could be mekudeshet to somebody else. So the drasha that we're making, bat eshet avicha, has to be someone who's in the parsha of ishut. So it makes sense that she should be included because she's at least in the parsha of ishut with regard to everybody else, just not with your father. So the Gemara says, well, I have a counter svara. It makes more sense actually the other way around, that it should have included a sister from a shivcha or an oved kochavim. Why? Because if she converts, to kiddushin will also be tofsin by her. Meaning, if the father was with a goya, so the goya could convert, and it's shayach kiddushin, so maybe she should be included, and chayve kritut should be excluded, because chayve kritut never will the father be able to be mekadesh the chayve kritut. So the Gemara answers that no, that's not a good counter argument. Why? Because when she converts, she's a new individual. It's not the same individual that converted. She's a reborn, a new individual. Okay, so that was all according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. What's the Mekor that a sister, well, what type of sister is not considered a sister when it comes to the Erva Vachoto? A sister that came from a Shivcha or Ravid Kochavim. How do we know this? Because the Pasuk says, Ervat bat eshet avicha. Has to be through someone that has ishut to your father. But a sister that came through someone who is not a Shivcha or Ravid Kochavim, that's Shayach ishut, then that is considered your sister. Rabbanan lemute shivcha v'oved kochavim minalehu. How do Rabbanan know to exclude shivcha and v'oved kochavim? Nafkaluhu mehaisha viladeha. They learn from the pasuk of haisha viladeha, which we had before on the previous amud. The pasuk says by avadim. It says that when if an eved agrees together with shivcha kanaanit, it says haisha viladeha tiel adoneha, that when the Eved leaves, he doesn't take the children that he had with the Shivcha Kanaanit with him. The children of Shivcha stay with the Shivcha, meaning the children of the Shivcha are Avadim and Shvachot. And therefore, they're not miuchasim to the father. They stay with the mother. So therefore, it's not considered your sister if they come from a Shivcha or Goya. So Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. So what Rabbi Yosef could have also used this pasuk. Why does he have this other drasha of Ervat bat eshet avicha? So chad b'shivcha, chad b'oved kochavim. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda says I need two drashot, one for shivcha, one for oved kochavim. One to tell me that a sister that comes from a shivcha is not considered a sister, and one is to tell me shivcha that comes from an oved kochavim is not considered a sister. V'tzrichi, and I need both of them. Why di ashmin shivcha? Mishum de'en lachayis. If it would have just said shivcha, I would have thought, okay, it would have just said the pasuk of v'haisha v'yiladeh. I would have known that a sister through a shivcha is not considered a sister. That's because avadim and shvachot don't have yichus at all. They're not miuchasim to their fathers, to the previous generation. Aval kochavim de'en lachayis, but a goyim have yichus through their father. Like we have various places in Sefer Melachim, Rashi brings that talks about kings of goyim, that the pasuk is miyaches them after their father, Ploni ben Ploni, Ploni ben Ploni. So you see that goyim do have yichus. So maybe the sister through a goya would be considered your sister, because maybe they would both be miyuchasim through their father. But the sister through a shivcha, not. Therefore, I need the pasuk of bat eshet avicha that teaches me even by a goya. So I would have thought that an Oved Kochavim would be different. V'yashminan Oved Kochavim. If it would have taught me only the pasuk of Ervat Bad Eshet Avicha, that I would have known that an Oved Kochavim, if a father has a sister, if someone has a sister through an Oved Kochavim, that's not considered his sister. Mishum lo shaycha b'mitzvot, because an Oved Kochavim is not within the parsha of mitzvot. They're not Jewish at all. Aval shivcha the shaycha b'mitzvot, but a shivcha that's shayechet b'mitzvot, she's like quasi a little bit Jewish. So Ema lo, I would have said that she's not included in the exclusion, right? Meaning she would be included. So therefore, you need that pasuk to exclude a shivcha as well. So I need a pasuk to exclude a sister through a goya, and a pasuk to exclude a sister through a shivcha. So bat esh davicha is coming to exclude a sister through a goya, and haisha viladeha tiel adonea is coming to exclude a sister through a shivcha. So the Gemara says, "V'Rabbanan ashchan shivcha with kochamim minalehu." Okay, according to the Rabbanan, so we find an isur of not an isur, but we find shivcha. We find that they only have the pasuk of haisha viladeha. So that teaches me by a shivcha, a sister that a person has through a shivcha is not considered his sister. But how do we know that a shivcha, a sister that comes from the Oved Kochavim, is not considered a sister with regard to the erva of achoto, according to Rabbanan. If you want to tell me that they'll learn from shivcha to Oved Kochavim, hanu mitzrach tzrichi. We need both of them, like we just said. There's reasons to be mechalik between the two. Therefore, we need both. So Amar Yochanan Mishum Rishon Ben Yochai Amar Kras, or Yochanan says the name of Rishon Bar Yochai. The pasuk says, and it's a very important pasuk. This is a makor. We have to go a little bit fast and finish up, but this is a makor. We're going to try to make it to the bottom of the Amud Be'ezras Hashem. Ki yasir et bincha ma'acharai. So the pasuk says, this is talking about. The pasuk says there's an isur of lo titchaten bam. You cannot take the goya as your daughter-in-law for your son, and you cannot take a goy, give your daughter over to a goy to your son-in-law. So the pasuk says, why not? Ki yasir et bincha ma'acharai, because he, your son-in-law, is going to cause your son, meaning your grandson, to go astray. Meaning, if you give your daughter to a goy and they have a child, that son-in-law goy is going to cause your grandson to go astray. But it says ki yasir, he will, meaning only if your daughter has a son through the goy, that's considered your son, and that grandchild is considered your son, and we're worried the goy is gonna take your son astray. But if it's you're taking a goya in for your son, so we don't have such a thing. It's not called bincha. The child that's born from that relationship is not called bincha, but the child is born through your daughter, and a goy is called bincha. So says the Gemara, you see from here, ki asirat bincha ma'acharai, bincha mi-Yisraelit karui bincha. Your child from the Yisraelit, meaning from your daughter, the mother was a Yisraelit, that's called bincha. Ben bincha abba min oved kochavim karui bincha. But if the mother was an oved kochavim, if your son married a goya and had a child, that child is not called bincha ela banah, that's her son. This is the makor, how we know that if the mother is Jewish, the baby is Jewish. From this pasuk, Amar Ravina Shema Mina Ben Bitecha Haba Mina Oved Kochavim Karui Bincha. So Ravina says, you see from here that your daughter's son, even though the father of that son is an Oved Kochavim, that's called Bincha. He's miyuchas after you. Lema Kasav Ravina Oved Kochavim. Ve'eved Abal Bat Yisrael Havlad Kasher. Maybe Ravina holds that if a goy or an Eved is together with a Bat Yisrael, the Vlad is kasher, is fully kasher. So the Gemara says, well, Nihi de mamzer lo have, even though it's not a mamzer when the father is a goy, but kasher nami lo have, it's not fully kasher. Yisrael pasul nikris, Yisrael pasul, there's a pegam there. So the Gemara now questions this pasuk. Hi, beshiva umot ktiv. This pasuk, great mekor, ki yasiret bincha, wonderful. So we learn that the lady is that the child is miyuchas through the mother, not through the father. Therefore, if the mother is a goya or a vede kochavi or a shifcha, it's not miyuchas to the brother, and there would be no isser of achoto in that case. Great, but that's only talking about the shiva umot. That's not talking about all goyim. So that's talking about the Chiti, Amori, Perizi, Kanani, etc. Not all goyim. So the Gemara says, K'tiv ki asir l'rabot kol ha'mesirim. The pasuk says ki asir. Ki asir is coming to include all goyim. Any goy is mesir. They all will cause the child to leave Yiddishkeit and go astray. So the Gemara says, Hanich l'Rabbi Shimon the Darish Tam the Kra. That works fine. I'll accept that according to Rabbi Shimon that he's Darish Tam the Kra. He learns from the reasoning of the pasuk. So the pasuk says ki yasir. The reasoning is because the son-in-law will cause the child to go astray and leave Yiddishkeit. So that's true according by all goyim. So, but that works according to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that he's dorish tam the kra. El Rabbanan, but according to the Rabbanan, they're arguing on Rabbi Shimon and they're not dorish tam the kra. They don't follow the reasoning of the pasuk. So it's still only talking about the 7 nations. So according to Rabbanan, what is how do we know that achoto that comes through shivcha and oved kochavim by the 7 nations is not going to be considered achoto? Minalu, how do they know that? So mantan the plug over the Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon here. Who is the Rabbanan here that we're trying to work with and argue with Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda? It is Rabbi Shimon. So it comes out we have Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. He learns from the pasuk of Ervat Bat Esh Davicha that a sister that one has through a Oved Kochavim is not considered his sister, and he learns from the pasuk of Hayisha V'Ladeh Tiyel Adoneha that a sister that one has through a Shivcha is not considered his sister, and Rabbanan learn from the pasuk of Rabbanan, which is really Rabbi Shimon. They learn from the pasuk of Ki Yasir et Bincha that a sister that one has through an Oved Kochavim is not considered his sister, and these are the drashot. That is Kaf Gimel Amud Aleph.